On a quiet Monday in early 2025, global trade was rocked by a stunning announcement. President Donald Trump, newly returned to the White House, unveiled sweeping tariffs, a universal 10% on nearly all imports, and up to 60% on select Chinese goods. The move was sudden, aggressive, and signaled a dramatic escalation of America First policies. Trump claimed the tariffs would protect American jobs, force fairer trade, and bring manufacturing back home. But the world was caught off guard. Hopes for stability evaporated overnight. International leaders and organizations like the WTO and IMF warned of dire consequences, fearing a domino effect of protectionism. Financial markets plunged into volatility as analysts scrambled to assess the fallout. The announcement overshadowed all other policy debates, injecting deep uncertainty into the global economy. The question on everyone's mind: would other countries retaliate? How would businesses and consumers cope? The new tariffs didn't just change policy, they upended the rules of global trade. The world braced for a new era of economic conflict, unsure of what would come next. The shockwave was immediate, but the aftershocks were only beginning. The stage was set for a high-stakes, unpredictable trade war. The tariffs hit hardest where global supply chains run deepest, especially in autos and manufacturing. U.S. carmakers reliant on imported parts from Mexico, Canada, Germany, and Japan faced soaring costs. Building a car in America suddenly became much more expensive, squeezing profits and threatening jobs. Manufacturers of everything from washing machines to medical devices saw prices for steel, aluminum, and electronics spike. Companies faced a tough choice: absorb the costs or pass them to consumers. The policy meant to help American industry often made it harder to compete, both at home and abroad. America's closest partners, Canada, Mexico, Germany, South Korea, were all hit, despite deep economic ties. For Canada and Mexico, the tariffs struck at the heart of their economies, disrupting the USMCA agreement. But China was the main target, with 60% tariffs aiming to decouple the two superpowers' economies. The result, a global landscape of pain, with industries and nations scrambling to adapt. The auto sector teetered on crisis, and manufacturing costs soared. Allies and rivals alike were left reeling, searching for a path forward. The tariffs were a blunt instrument, causing widespread disruption. The world's economic map was being redrawn in real time. For American families, the tariffs hit home fast. Prices on everyday goods, clothing, electronics, groceries, jumped as importers passed on the new costs. The result was a hidden tax, shrinking paychecks, and stretching household budgets. Even small increases added up, eroding purchasing power and making life more expensive. Big-ticket items like cars and homes became pricier as manufacturers and builders faced higher costs for materials. The American dream, owning a home, buying a new car, slipped further out of reach for many. The pain was immediate and widespread, especially for those living paycheck to paycheck. The administration argued it was a necessary sacrifice for long-term gain, but the public felt the squeeze. The tariffs' impact rippled through every corner of daily life. Trade barriers at the border became higher bills at the checkout. The burden of the trade war landed squarely on American wallets. The world didn't sit still. Retaliation was swift and strategic. Canada and Mexico, America's closest partners, hit back with tariffs on U.S. agricultural goods and manufactured products, targeting politically sensitive states. China, the main target, responded with tariffs on soybeans, aircraft, and machinery, aiming to inflict economic and political pain. The European Union joined in, taxing iconic American exports like blue jeans and bourbon. Each move was calculated to pressure U.S. industries and lawmakers. The result, a cycle of escalation, with trade barriers rising on all sides. American farmers, manufacturers, and workers found themselves caught in the crossfire. The hope for a quick American victory faded as the trade war became a global conflict. Retaliation wasn't just about economics, it was about sending a message: the world would not be bullied. The united front from Canada, Mexico, China, and the EU turned a U.S. policy into a worldwide standoff. The trade dispute now spanned continents, industries, and millions of livelihoods. The cost of confrontation was mounting for everyone. The global economy was now locked in a dangerous tit-for-tat. The stakes had never been higher. The world was fighting back and the battle lines were drawn. Financial markets reacted instantly to the tariff war. Negativity swept the globe. U.S. stock indices plunged, erasing billions in value within hours. Uncertainty spread to Asia and Europe, with markets tumbling worldwide. Investors feared a global slowdown, as trade wars threatened growth and profits. Oil prices dropped, Currencies swung wildly, and investors rushed to safe havens like gold and the yen. Bond yields fell as money fled risky assets. The turmoil wasn't just numbers. Retirement savings shrank and companies struggled to raise capital. The market's message was clear. Protectionism carried real, immediate risks. Policymakers faced mounting pressure as the economic storm intensified. The world was bracing for recession, with confidence shaken at every level. The reckoning had arrived, and the warning signs were everywhere. For businesses, the trade war meant survival mode. Tariffs drove up costs for raw materials and slashed access to foreign markets. Many companies froze hiring or laid off workers to cope. Ironically, industries meant to be protected, like steel, saw job losses elsewhere as costs rippled through the economy. Farmers lost key export markets overnight, pushing many toward bankruptcy. To adapt, companies scrambled to diversify supply chains, seeking new suppliers outside tariff zones. Some even considered moving production abroad to avoid tariffs, a twist on the policy's intent. Long-term strategies shifted. Businesses built in more redundancy, held extra inventory, and invested in complex compliance. Efficiency suffered, and costs rose across the board. The trade war became a tax on innovation and growth. The broader economy paid the price in lost jobs and slower progress. Companies learned to survive in a fragmented, unpredictable world. The cost of adaptation was steep and ongoing. The 2025 trade war echoed the mistakes of the 1930s, when protectionism deepened the Great Depression. Then, as now, tariffs sparked retaliation and choked off global commerce. Economists agree, trade wars create only losers, not winners. The lesson from history is clear. Closing borders leads to shared hardship and rising tensions. The 2025 tariffs shattered decades of progress toward open, rules-based trade. Trust in the global system eroded, and countries turned inward, forming rival blocs. The world became more fragmented, less predictable, and less prosperous. The long-term damage lost growth, fewer jobs, and a weakened global order. The experience showed that tariffs are a blunt, often counterproductive tool. While a few industries may benefit, the broader economy suffers. In a globalized world, no nation can act alone without consequences. Retaliation is inevitable, and cooperation is essential for prosperity. The challenge ahead: repair the damage, rebuild trust, and remember the lessons of history. Only through stable, cooperative trade can the world hope to thrive again.